your creativity is literally your superpower. Welcome back. Today, I am so excited to get into where we left off. So we left off in, gosh, we talked about a lot. 2012, how my little crazy self left my job, my contract, started my own blog. I set this big ambitious goal to have a Grammy Award winning artist, did everything to align myself, grind myself into getting a contact for that, interviewed Chrisette Michelle for that, launched the blog, how the blog became a weird, perfectly orchestrated opportunity, which drew in my very first clients, which became Summary Consulting Group, its own business, which again, accidental entrepreneur. And then we left off on me sharing how at 25, I had my own experience of burnout, along with losing my aunt, became the catalyst for me pausing and giving myself permission to pivot, be still, and experience life from a place of freedom and wholeness. So that is where we will pick up today. I would like to affectionately call this getting free. I've left Jamaica and I returned to Chicago, and I spend the next year of my life essentially doing all the things on an official sabbatical. Baby was like living her life. I focused on hitting that yoga studio, taking my necessary classes to complete my 200-hour training at the time. I also decided to host a lot of intimate gatherings with friends and family and community that were not official. They were just little me cooking, me feeding people, me spending time with people.
Talk about savoring your food and letting your food and eating be a meditation. That is what this moment is right now.
And I did it enough that people were like, oh, how'd you make that? How'd you make that? That seems to be a recurring theme in my life. How did you do that? Oh, let me show you. Oh, here's some money for it. Praise God. So these little gatherings, it started off with one in Chicago that my cousin let me host in her apartment at the time. And I called it a dinner demo. And I invited out about maybe 25, 30 people to come. And just to cover the cost of food, I asked for an entrance fee. I made my very first cherry wine. I demoed how to make my sweet potato black bean burger. There were so many good dishes. I had a friend there who was a vendor. She and her husband at the time, they were doing their thing, selling their little goodies. In Chicago, that's just the vibe. We get together, we celebrate, we eat, we feel good. It's like a house party. It was my life for about 9 months. Just yoga, personal development, time alone, walking to Lake Michigan, eating and feeding people. So that was my whole world. I was also probably running from the reality that my relationship had just fallen apart and running towards anything that felt just like bliss. I affectionately call this season discovering my bliss. And that's exactly what it became. And on that discovery and pursuit of my bliss, my desire for entrepreneurship shifted. I wanted to find a way to combine everything that I knew professionally with everything that I was learning about myself in wellness. And this whole concept called the Blisspreneur journey came to life, where it was all about the hero's journey. My whole life was shifting, and the thing that was at the core of everything for me was I just need to be happy. And if I can do that, and if I can pour that into anything that I do in the future, then I know I'll be successful. That will bring me joy. That'll bring pleasure to God and pleasure to me. So at the end of 2015, I locked my hair, put 2-strand twist in and let them lock. And I began to explore what life could look like if I left Chicago. Because one thing I did feel when I was in Jamaica was that there was something about the movement out of my comfort zone and the spark that created in me. I needed to experience more of that. Sure, I lived in Detroit and left and started my life in Chicago. And that was a big step. It was huge. But I knew that there was more of the world out there for me. And the only thing keeping me from experiencing that, no children, no job, literally nothing holding me back, was me. So I began to explore what it could look like. And one of the places that I was curious about was Austin, Texas. I had heard a lot about it. I heard it was a creative place for weirdos like me. It was Texas, but not Texas. Good food. It was great for the vegan culture at the time. It was fire. So I was let me go pop down in Austin. I knew some people who lived not too far from there. And I was this could be a vibe for me. So my little self decided to apply for some opportunities to see if I could make money, to see if it was viable. Then I knew God would create something to make it sustainable. And I moved from Chicago to Austin, spring 2016. I moved into an apartment with no furniture, an air mattress. I bought a blender, the necessary pots and pans, rented my wash and dryer, and I bought a TV. I just so happened to have, at that time, moved into a brand new property. My building was empty. I was the only one living in it. And my balcony faced a little mini woodsy area. So every day I woke up, I opened my door, I put this little Velcro blind screen up, and I let the fresh wind come in every single day. I prayed. I fasted. Oh my goodness. I just poured myself into personal and professional and spiritual development during that period of time. It was life-changing. And I wanted that because everything that was comfortable to me back in Chicago, while it was foundational, it was keeping me from hearing myself. And I knew that once I left, I could really reconnect again with whomever I was becoming. So in Austin, I really found my own voice. And that voice began asking new questions. What does life look like without all of the hustle and more flow? And again, at that time, I was using the term bliss because that was what I was in pursuit of. That was critical. I remember prior to leaving Chicago, I met someone amazing and we started dating while I was in Austin. We dated long distance. And shortly after moving to Austin, we entered our relationship, and that became a 4 to 5 year whirlwind of just beautiful, safe, dependable love, an amazing relationship with lots of growth and challenges. But the first time that I left my comfort, became myself, and then entered a relationship, became an opportunity for us to travel together. We lived out of the country. We lived in, if I'm not mistaken, 4 cities, 5 cities, 2 countries. We spent our time in Mexico. I was working, I was teaching English online to make money on the side. Fortunately, he was just an amazing provider and partner, so I didn't have to struggle. I could I used that time to really just take care of myself and experiment. And I'm so grateful for that period of my life and for the human that he is. For me, it was always about creating ease in my life. We built a great relationship. We supported each other. Then I was finally able to start taking these big thoughts around wellness and entrepreneurship and merging them into what was at that time known as the Blisspreneur journey. So, it was then, there's a video of me. Yeah, wrote a tape. Very soon, I'm going to eliminate all individual one-on-one services so I can really focus on what my passion is, which is working with organizations, groups, facilitating workshops, speaking to people and inspiring them to do their ultimate best work through their purpose. It was then, I was sitting on my balcony prior to leaving Austin. I made a declaration that I wanted to cultivate opportunities that would allow me to teach individuals everything that I had learned around creativity and project management and all these skills that I had gained up to that point, and serve groups. So not just individuals, but eventually groups. And I spoke into existence exactly what I would be doing today on that balcony with my little short locks by myself with no plan and no knowledge of how I would get there. But I just knew the confidence, the foresight, the faith, the knowingness of that beautiful young girl. I'm just so proud of her. What you saw there was just an example of someone who chose to see themselves as a free being, able to receive all of God's blessings, direction, and gifts just by being open to them. It was then that I spoke into existence that I would be a facilitator, that I would teach and lead workshops, that I would influence groups at mass and not just working one-to-one with people, because that was what my heart desired. And I spoke my heart's desire, and here I am 11 years later, and those things have happened, and they are happening, and that is the foundation of my work. I also use that time while in my relationship, while traveling, to hone in on my skills. I was always taking project management trainings and courses. I was always upskilling, basically. So there was never downtime where I was not taking care of my mind and my skills. I just didn't rush myself through it, nor did I try to immediately take my skill and flip it into money. It was just how can I refine myself holistically? How can I be better at what I do? How can I improve myself without the pressure of being performative? And, I have no regrets about that, because it was that allowed me to get clear about the bigger vision for my life and the why behind what I was creating. Up until that point, I don't think I had a real why. I just knew what I wanted to do, and I knew how I wanted to impact people, but there was still a disconnect between the bigger purpose, right? That didn't come until I did all that travel, until my partner at the time and I decided to go our separate ways in pursuit of how to go out in the world and start experiencing that. And unfortunately, there were things that just did not align for us at that time to be able to do that together. I spent a year back in Chicago and then came to Dallas, Texas, baby. And I knew I was coming back to Texas. I just didn't know it would be Dallas. I didn't know that Dallas would be the place where my heart, my purpose, my vision, all would like be solidified. And I surely didn't know that it would be during a pandemic. But before I got to Dallas, the year that I spent in Chicago was very challenging because it felt like I had done a loop back to like a place that I thought I had outgrown, but clearly God wasn't done with me there. It was in the humility of being back in Chicago and kind of walking those same streets, being in the same neighborhood, seeing the same people, having to ask myself, is this where you want to be? Like, we know you can do it here, but is this enough? And is this really what God wants for you? It was there that I got very serious. Like I said, I had been doing this upskilling, but it was there that I became very serious about locking into my project management skills. That was life-changing. It was literally the difference between like everything that I had done to that point. I just didn't really specialize in any particular area. And at that moment I said, I'm going to specialize in project management. I'm not going to do this publicly. This is for me, like I'm going to do this. I'm going to go after contracts. I'm going to work with agencies as a freelancer. I'm going to get mentorship. That is when I met Asia Watkins, who is the founder of Women of Project Management. I had met her when I was living in Atlanta virtually, but it was in 2018 when I was in Chicago, or 2019 when I was in Chicago, that I reached out to her and I said, hey, like I see what you're building. I want to get very serious about this as my craft. I need mentorship. I would be willing to volunteer, like whatever I could do to be of service to you in exchange, learn from you is what I'm willing to do. I ain't never been afraid to ask for help, and I ain't never been afraid to pull my sleeves up and do the work, because compensation is divine and it always comes back. And so when I offered that at the time, I remember Asia didn't have anything that she could offer me. So I ended up working for an agency in Chicago as an integrator. And it was maybe 6 months later, once I moved to Dallas officially, that Asia and I got closer, and she found a project that she thought was a great fit for me, and we had a successful first contract for that, which was really just running her social media at the time. If you look at Women of Project Management now, that thing is popping. She was always good at what she does. And I was so excited to be able to support her. I think at that time she wasn't even at her first 10K. And look at her now. Just so proud of everything she's built. At that time, again, I was helping like on a small social media project. And then eventually I helped her develop like some funnels and designing and implementing those. And then we embarked on like her largest project at that time, which was migrating her entire community from like a free community into like a paid learning management system, interviewing her first, I want to say 20 or 30 project managers, including myself, to be on this platform. And she completely changed her business model. And I was a part of helping facilitate her transition from a full-time business owner and employee to becoming a full-time mogul, because that is what baby is. And that is what Women in Project Management is. It is the number one, it's the only, and I believe number one community for women of project management, specifically women of color, Black women project management. So she has put her stake in the game, and I watched her build all of it and was fortunate to be a part of that. To me, that was a critical moment of change for me. And it was being able to hone in on a skill, commit to it, kind of in the background, not necessarily telling people I was doing that, not necessarily offering that as a service quite yet, but really just fine tuning. I, again, was working with agencies as a project manager for years leading up to that, but there was something so powerful about having direct mentorship and a project that I cared about, something that actually meant something to me and my community. That is when God began to really just like bless it tenfold. That led to referrals. Those referrals led to more work. Before you know it, I was like able to be completely self-sustainable as a freelance project manager. And what was beautiful about that is little did I know that I would then, not many months later, be entering the pandemic. Little pandemic of 2020, honey. If there was ever a time to have invested in yourself, your skills, your mental wellness, your freedom, one end of the spectrum, my whole life was falling apart. But on the other end of the spectrum, I was like digging into what I knew worked. That was one of the most powerful times for me for connection and relationship building. I had the opportunity to do that all virtually, leading up to what would then be a time where the whole world was shifting into remote work. So I was already doing that. Moving to Dallas in 2019, transitioning through the pandemic in 2020, it was the starting point for Creative Flow Alchemy. It was, the beginning of having a method that took the time to dissect everything I'd learned over the past 5 to 8 years and prior, having been an employee and working since I was 15, 16 years old, having always been entrepreneurial. But all of a sudden, I didn't just have my story. I had the hundreds of clients, projects, and experiences to back this, what would become framework and now method known as Creative Flow Alchemy. So it was the pandemic that allowed me to sit still, strip all of my preconceived notions around what I was here to do, and actually ask God to take this data and make it make sense for me. And I was like, help me understand myself, help me understand my patterns, help me understand my clients' patterns, like almost like a mad scientist. I remember having sheets of paper on the walls of my apartments, just like dissecting and asking questions and leaving it and resting and coming back to it and having insights, dreams, visions, while also working and while also trying to be healthy during a pandemic. It was then that God gave me not the name of my framework or method, but rather a tool that I created at the time that was called the Creative Flow Forecast, is what I called it. I created this simple activity and I asked around 30 to 50 people to just do this one sheet activity for me, give me feedback. And as they did that and I refined it and fine-tuned it, that became my very first offering within this business that is today Creative Flow School and Creative Flow Alchemy. The Creative Flow Forecast at the time was, again, a one sheet document. It is now known as the Creative Flow Audit, because what it did was ask you to kind of sit and observe your patterns over the last 12 months. I needed a solution for me. I have a whole training on this, so I'm going to link that. It is in my community. I highly encourage you to check it out. I talk about everything from moving to Dallas to what became Creative Flow Alchemy and the purpose of this activity. So I won't even go too far into that. But what I will tell you is that exercise was a one-sheeter. It is now a full training. It's my number one signature training. It is the thing that my entire business was built on. And it came from one question. God, help me see me and help me put myself into service based on everything that you have taught and brought me through. And then help me get it in front of people who can do the self work, give me that data, find a way to tell the story, package it up, and show them how to do it for themselves. So that was really what my business was built on. It was built on self-reflection, self-assessment, and creating personal solutions to real-world problems that only come from doing the data. If you're curious about the Creative Flow Audit, I'll include that training below. I would even more so encourage you to check out the Creative Flow Forecast masterclass that I've taught so you can really get into it. And I'm going to leave off with this. How did all of these experiences truly lead me to forming what is known as Creative Flow Alchemy? I would say it's all about honoring your creativity. It's all about assessing your strengths. It's all about recognizing your gifts and being able to empower yourself and others at the same time. To me, that is the heart of what being a creative entrepreneur is all about. It's like, let me tap into my life force, my creativity, and let me figure out how to serve myself and others without burning out, without taking from others, but rather having a reciprocal flow in my life. Ultimately, that is going to result in impact, influence, and income. And that is what I teach through Creative Flow Alchemy and so much more. These experiences help me shape that. And ultimately, I think in the next episode, we'll explore how this method specifically can help you. Let's lock in on our next conversation on how to take Creative Flow Alchemy and use it where you are. That's where I want to take you guys next. Thank you again for just coming on this journey with me. I want to leave you with this thought. The journey to finding your flow, the journey to finding your purpose begins with an honest self-assessment of what brings you joy and what is your ultimate purpose on this earth. Those things have to align, your joy and your purpose, in order for a fulfilled life. So if you have not given yourself the space to pause, to pivot, to play, to experiment, whether it be hosting friends and families for a supper club that then became profitable side gig, or being confident and crazy enough to say, I want to start something like a blog that then led you into opening a consulting agency. The thing is, it takes a risk, but you also have to have some purpose behind it. You have to be willing to be fearless in pursuit of your freedom, be willing to look crazy, be uncomfortable, be willing to burn it down and start over if that's what it takes. So don't ever let anyone tell you that there's only one way down that road. And no matter where you are today, I just want to encourage you to know that your creativity is literally your superpower. It can take you to places beyond your wildest imagination, as long as you're using it in pursuit of, in my humble opinion, in pursuit of serving the creator and the world at large. I'm gonna just send y'all some love. I can't wait to get back and continue this conversation on what the 4 seasons of Creative Flow Alchemy are and how you can use them in your life personally and professionally to level up your relationships and to land that amazing job or start the business you want. Because it's not just about entrepreneurship. Creative Flow Alchemy, I teach it to employees and staff and teams all the time. And actually that's my bread and butter right now. It's all about like personal leadership and creating a leadership framework that you can lean into at any given time. I will see you guys on the next time.